Okay, let's jump in. Usually on the show, we're looking at something. Well, something with clean lines. We'll take a stack of articles, maybe a new scientific paper, and we try to find the logical thread holding it all together.
We look for the system.
Exactly, we look at the system. But today we are conducting what I can only describe as a forensic audit of a text that actively, aggressively fights back against logic. We're looking at Black Bear Comes Up Brushy, The Queen Cinnamons of 556 by K. Brad Barfield.
And honestly, it's not just that the math is like completely delulu. It is.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is a category error. Is this history? Is it sci-fi? Is it some kind of, I don't know, an economics textbook that's been disguised as a fever dream?
A fever dream is a good way to put it.
The vibes are, and I'm quoting the text here, terminal.
Terminal vibes is perfect, because what we have here is a collision, a full-on, head-on collision.
It's a car crash, but in the best way.
Right. It's a collision between physics and folklore. As the preface says, and this really sets the stage, this isn't just a story about a bear or some quirky time travel. It's a story about thresholds.
It's about markers.
Yes, and it's about what happens when you stare out into the woods and the woods stop answering you back in a language you can even begin to recognize.
And really, it all boils down to desperation. That's the core of it. We are looking at two very specific, very desperate realities in Ashley County, Arkansas that have absolutely no business interacting. But they do.
So let's set that stage. We need to establish the mission here, because for all the absurdity we're about to get into, and trust me, there are time-traveling chickens, we will get there, there is a really rigorous system under the hood.
Okay.
In the red corner, we have the year 556 AD.
The woodland period. But this is not the idyllic version you see in, like, a museum diorama. This world is broken. There's a massive drought happening, which the book calls the sun's long sleep.
Probably caused by a volcanic winter somewhere else on the planet, which is historically plausible. But the text uses this specific phrase for the environment that I love it. Negative temperature thermodynamics.
Right. The earth is sold up.
Sold up. Can you unpack that?
Yeah, it's an old Southern term. It's like when a possum plays dead or a toddler gets really quiet and just refuses to speak. It's a stubborn stillness. The earth has just stopped giving. The bear clan is starving. The rivers are dust. All the thermodynamics are in the red.
And then, in the blue corner, you have November 2026, and you have FOB Cooter.
Which is just an aesthetic masterpiece. I'm obsessed with it.
It really is. It's an 18-foot stilt house, deep in a swamp right next to a Georgia Pacific paper mill. And it's inhabited by this triad of burnout refugees who are basically holding their entire reality together with, like, duct tape and corporate jargon.
And the sound, we have to talk about the sound design of this world, because the noise is a character.
The industrial hum. This is the physics engine of the entire book. The whole premise of the time travel here isn't a machine. It's not a DeLorean with a flux capacitor. It's something the book calls the chronohydraulic spline.
Which sounds so technical, like something from a physics exam. But it's actually really, really gross when you get down to it. It's visceral.
It is deeply physical. And I want to geek out on the mechanics for a second because it's so brilliant. Okay. You have the Georgia Pacific paper mill generating a constant 60 hertz vibration. That's a standard hum of the American electrical grid.
You hear it everywhere.
Exactly. And that hum vibrates the earth. Specifically, it vibrates the mud of Brushy Creek.
And this isn't just any mud. The book is very specific. It's thixotropic.
Yes. Thixotropy. It's a real physical property where a solid-like substance becomes liquid when you agitate it. Think about quicksand or ketchup in a bottle or even concrete before it sets.
You have to shake it up to make it flow.
Precisely. So this constant 60 hertz industrial hum is shearing the mud, it's thinning it out, and it creates what the book calls a soft spot. It basically allows a 6th century shaman to just sink into the timeline in 556 AD.
He used to silt sleep.
And then pops up in a kitchen in 2026. It's industrial vibration acting as a temporal pump. But what I love, what really makes this work, is that the characters in 2026 do not treat this as magic.
No, not at all. They treat it as an inconvenience.
It's a plumbing issue. It's a leak in reality.
Which brings us to the triad at FOB Cooter.
Yeah.
And this is where the character dynamics are just chef's kiss. You've got Joan, the narrator. I am obsessed with her. A 1,500-year-old man materializes in her kitchen, and she doesn't scream.
What does she say?
She just says she doesn't have the bandwidth for emotional performativity.
She treats fear like it's a budget line item she can't afford this quarter.
Exactly. And she speaks in this dialect the book calls Portuguese. It's this Incredible invention. It's a mix of, like, 19th century legal formality and 2026 diagnostic slang. She'll use an acoustic guitar to try and stabilize the frequencies in the room, but she talks like she's drafting a subpoena.
And she's with Rick, the systems investigator. He's an IO psychologist, and he treats the space-time continuum like it's a dysfunctional corporate spreadsheet. He's always looking for process problems.
He wants to optimize the timeline.
Right. But my personal hero, and I think he's the key to the book's entire logic, is JD.
JD is the MVP. Absolutely. No question.
JD is the verifier. He's an industrial electrician, and his approach to the supernatural is it's breathtakingly literal. He tries to apply the National Electrical Code, the NEC, to ghosts.
He sees a time anomaly, and his first thought is to Lodo it.
Lockout, tagout. He literally wants to put a safety padlock on history to de-energize it.
Because to him, a shaman appearing in the kitchen isn't a spirit. It's what?
It ain't an anomaly, it's a ground fault. That's a direct quote. He sees it as electrical current leaking where it shouldn't go. His worldview is just so wonderfully, stubbornly physical.
So you have these hyper-logical, completely burnt-out moderns facing something deeply mystical, and their only tools are, what, paperwork and safety protocols.
That's it. Which brings us to the inciting incident. The shaman, Black Bear, eats the ceremonial mushrooms in 556. He enters the silt sleep, and he gets pumped by the spline right into the middle of FOB Cooter. And immediately, we get the lithic exchange.
This is the moment it all goes sideways, the first transaction.
And you have to understand, Black Bear isn't a tourist. He's not an explorer. The book calls him a resource extraction algorithm.
He's there for one reason.
Calories. He is hunting calories for his starving people.
So he makes a trade. He puts a piece of high-grade novaculite, which is, primo stone tool material from that area. He puts it on the table. And in exchange, he takes a 1985 bumblebee marble.
To JD, it's a piece of junk. It's glass, a toy. But you have to think about the material science from Black Bear's perspective.
Oh, it's future glass. It's a spirit stone. It's perfectly round. It's impossibly yellow. It represents a level of technology that is indistinguishable from magic to him.
And by accepting it, he entangles the timelines. It establishes a lithic economy. This is the first transaction on a very, very strange ledger.
And that ledger is all about energy. The 6th century is running a massive deficit.
As we said, negative entropy. They have no corn, no efficient protein. They are literally dying. And then Black Bear looks out the window of this stilt house, and he sees the ultimate technology.
The queen cinnamons.
The chickens.
100 industrial laying hens just scratch around in the yard.
And this is where you, the listener, really have to shift your perspective. Because to us, the chicken is, well, it's food, it's a farm animal. But to a hunter-gatherer who is deep in a famine,
it's a god, a tiny feathered god.
it's a biological machine. It is a creature that can take low-value grain stuff he can't even eat and convert it into a high-protein, perfectly packaged egg every single day. That breaks the laws of thermodynamics as he understands them.
It's order from chaos. It's pure energy creation.
Right. And he calls them spirits of fatness, and he literally bows to them.
But not just to the hens. He sees the hierarchy. He bows to the general.
General Beauregard.
The chief operating divinity. He's this magnificent Rhode Island red rooster. He wears a little 1950s big chief pin on his chest. And the general, he has agency. He's not just an animal. He understands what's happening.
He sees an opportunity.
He sees a market expansion. He realizes that in the 6th century, he wouldn't just be livestock. He would be a CEO.
But there's a massive logistical problem. And this is where the book gets really gritty with the systems analysis. You can't just send 100 genetically engineered high-performance industrial chickens back to 556 AD.
Why not?
Because they're high-performance machines. They need high-protein fuel. 556 AD in Arkansas doesn't have corn yet. It doesn't have soy. If you just send those birds back, they will starve and die within a week.
They need a supply chain.
They need a supply chain, which leads to the fish meal protocol.
I love this part. It's so practical and so insane.
The triad, Joan, Rick, and JD, they realize they have to teach Black Bear how to manufacture chicken feed. They teach him how to catch alligator gar and bowfin-totaled trash fish and process them into a high-protein meal using industrial smoke-curing logic.
It's so visceral. They're using a 55-gallon drum. JD is applying what he calls his Pakistan steel machete logic. They're essentially turning this ancient shaman into a factory foreman.
They are integrating him into the 21st century industrial complex, but to actually move the assets to get the chickens back to 556, they need a vehicle. And I don't just mean a car. I mean a narrative vehicle.
They need someone who can force the timeline to accept this level of absurdity.
They need Rafe Delaney.
Rafe. The governor. We have to spend some time on Race because he is a very specific kind of guy. He's a whole
How
fox.
does the text describe him? Lay it out.
Okay, so Rafe is a high-class border gringo from 1991. He drives a Ford F-150. He wears Harris tweed and $2,000 ostrich skin boots in the swamp. And he speaks in this, like, magisterial Cormac McCarthy cadence.
And he possesses what the text calls high confidence borrowed gravity, HCBG.
HCBG. It's my new favorite concept.
Yeah.
It's the idea that race creates his own reality through sheer semiotic weight. He mogs the timeline. He forces the world to accept him simply because he acts like he owns it.
Right. Reality just sort of organizes around his confidence. It's weaponized charisma.
But why him? Why does he specifically have to be the one to go back?
Because of the prophecy, or really the receipt. Remember the lithic exchange, that piece of novaculite?
Yeah.
Rafe finds his truck's VIN number etched onto it. The shaman, in a trance, carved it. He realizes he isn't just a driver for this expedition. He is the liability.
He's the payment.
He's the payment. The present owes the past a debt for the miracle of the eggs. The timeline demands balance. You send the spirits of fatness. You have to send the manager.
Oh, that's good. So they load up the injection event. They put 100 chickens, one sentient rooster, and a man in ostrich boots into the back of a Ford F-150. And they drive it through the soft spot on Big Mound Ridge.
And there's this great detail where the local 5G towers fail to xenolock them in place. The modern grid is trying to hold them in the present, but the momentum of the spline is just too strong. They punch through. And they land in 556 AD.
And this is where the story shifts gears. It stops being a time travel adventure, and it becomes, well, it basically becomes a game of civilization, but played by a corporate raider from the 90s.
It becomes the industrialization of the 6th century. Rafe doesn't just show up to survive, he administrates. He immediately starts applying 1990s logistics to this woodland period village. He turns the Bear Clan into a conglomerate.
It's so absurd, but it makes a weird kind of sense. He looks at their simple huts, and he doesn't see homes, he sees inefficiency. So what does he do? He introduces warehouses.
And tilt-up construction.
Using wattle and daub.
Exactly. He's basically creating a pre-modern fulfillment center in the middle of a drought so he can properly manage his egg inventory.
And the economy. He gets Taeon, the village potter, to start minting cooter coins. They're these little ceramic discs stamped with the general's face, coated in a spirit glaze. It's a fiat currency.
And then he creates subscription models for the neighboring clans. If the Panther clan wants a steady supply of eggs, they have to sign a terms of service agreement.
On what, a piece of bark?
Yes, a piece of bark with a thumbprint. But my favorite part, my absolute favorite, is the pseudo-dump tech support.
The connection is still open?
The connection is still open. They're in the past, but they still have this fragile link to 2026 through the mud. So JD, back in the future, is basically their remote IT guy. He's monitoring the feed, and he's sending items through the silt to fix their problems.
The industrial moccasin.
Tell them about the moccasins.
It's incredible. Rafe loses his $2,000 ostrich boots to the rough terrain. His HCBG is failing because his feet hurt, right? He's losing his confidence. So JD sends back wool socks and a roll of duct tape.
The solution to all problems.
Always. And Rafe wraps his feet in silver tape, and suddenly he's grounded again. He's back in business. He calls them his industrial moccasins.
But think about the legal implications here, too. When the rival clans start complaining about rotten eggs because, it's 556 AD, they don't have refrigeration, what does JD send back?
Stickers.
He sends back rolls of stickers, ASIS stickers, and extended warranty labels.
And Rafe uses them. He creates a legal framework. He tells these agri hunter-gatherers, look, you sign the receipt. The contract says ASIS. You have no recourse. He is introducing consumer protection law to people who are just trying not to starve.
It is hilarious, but it's also, it's genuinely terrifying. The book calls it header corruption. They're overclocking the timeline. Taeyeon the potter starts using shell tempering for her pots because Rafe casually suggests it might make them stronger.
Which is a huge deal, archaeologically speaking. Shell tempering doesn't show up in that region until, 1300 AD. By introducing it in 556, they are fundamentally rewriting the archaeological record. They are cooking the history books for future generations.
And while all this is happening, the general, the rooster, he's consolidating power.
Oh, he demands a golden parachute.
Of course he does. He's the CEO. He realizes his value is tied to the sunrise. So he stages a work stoppage. He refuses to crow.
So JD has to send back a 1985 gold-plated service medal as an executive bonus. And the general wears it. And he becomes this absolute tyrant of efficiency. He starts auditing the clan's storytelling time around the fire.
Calling it non-value-added latency. He's literally stopping them from telling their own stories because it's not productive, it's not laying eggs. That is the ultimate corporate dystopia, efficiency murdering culture.
He basically union busts the pottery women until they have to invent earplugs out of moss and beeswax just to ignore his constant crowing about KPIs.
But there's a cost. There's always a cost. And this is where the story takes a very sharp turn into horror, because that chronohydraulic spline isn't free. The energy for this miracle, for the eggs, the time travel, the survival, it has to be drawn from somewhere.
The grievance capital.
Exactly. The text reveals that the entire operation is being paid for by a tragedy that happened in 1987, the Markle Resonance. There was an IP strike at the paper mill, a family tragedy, something the book calls a systemic reset. And the psychic trauma from that event is leaking through the timeline.
It's the fuel.
It's the fuel, and it leaks through a couple of key objects. A plastic Reaper mask from a 1987 Halloween party, and the smart fridge back in 2026.
The fridge is such a great narrative device. It's supposed to be this high-tech, helpful appliance, but it gets possessed by the 1987 ghost voice. It starts displaying INXS lyrics on its screen, Devil Inside, and it just screams legal summons at June.
And it displays its status, standing on business, vibes, immortal.
Chilling. But this ghost, this white dragon as the book calls it, it's a mist of trauma, and it tries to liquidate the 6th century. It's trying to collect on the energetic debt. And this leads to the big conflict on Big Mound Ridge.
The Union.
Taeyeon, the potter, she leads a matrilineal strike. She realizes that race logistics and the general's efficiency mandates are running them all into the ground. So she shuts down the kiln.
Which is brilliant. No jars, no egg storage.
No storage, no accumulated wealth. The entire subscription model collapses overnight.
It's a labor dispute in the Woodland period. And Rafe, being the manager he is, has to institute a tripartite election. God, labor, and strategy, the general, Taeyeon, and himself.
And the general tries to mog the ballot box. He tries to intimidate everyone into voting for him because he doesn't want to share power. But eventually he is satisfied.
And this is maybe the climax of the weirdness. To drown out the 1987 ghost voice, which is physically vibrating in the corn silk around the village, they have to invent a new ritual.
The mosh pit.
The sacred dance. The general, in a moment of sheer genius, realizes that kinetic worship, which is essentially a full-blown mosh pit, generates enough chaotic energy, enough riz to overwrite the trauma signal from 1987.
It actually makes a kind of physical sense. If the timeline itself is built on a steady vibration, that 60 hertz hum, then the way to fight a hostile frequency is with your own chaotic kinetic energy.
You disrupt the signal with noise, with kinetic worship.
But the final debt, the liability, it still has to be paid. Rafe is the reason this all happened. And to finally ground the ghost, to silence that 1987 resonance for good, he has to make the ultimate sacrifice.
He sacrifices the tweed, his Harris tweed vest, his spirit bark.
That vest was his identity. It was his armor. It was the symbol of the 1990s corporate world he came from, the source of his HCBG.
Exactly. And by taking it off, by becoming fully naturalized to the past, shirtless, barefoot, covered in ash, he pays the bill. He stops being a high-class border gringo.
And becomes the primary ground. He becomes the thing that absorbs the static.
He becomes part of the lore.
And that's the resolution. The timeline stabilizes. Back in 2026, the mud hardens. The soft spot closes for good. The connection is severed.
But the archaeological record is cooked.
Oh, it's completely cooked.
Yeah.
The archaeologists of the 30th century are going to find chicken DNA, shell-tempered pottery, and a gold-plated service medal in a 6th century strata in Arkansas. The academic papers that will be written are going to be absolutely insane.
An analysis of the chronohydraulic spline of Ashley County. It becomes a closed loop.
So bringing it all back home, we got the time-traveling chickens, the corporate rooster, the ghost in the smart fridge. But when you strip away all the Portazee slang and the beautiful absurdity of it all, what is the core argument here? Why does this story matter?
I think for me it's about systemic debt. You touched on it with the thermodynamics at the beginning. You cannot extract resources, whether those resources are calories from the ground or time from the past or even just good luck, without eventually paying a bill.
There's no free lunch.
There is no free lunch in the thermodynamic universe. Rafe tried to mog the past. He tried to colonize it with contracts and efficiency and supply chains. But in the end, the mud won.
The mud always wins.
It does. For Rafe to succeed, he had to lose his boots, his vest, his entire identity. He had to become part of the land to save it.
I see it as a story about lore winning out over logistics. You can optimize a village, you can put a barcode on a clay pot, but you can't optimize the human or I guess the poultry spirit forever. Eventually, the need for a story is stronger than the need for a spreadsheet.
And what about the general?
The general is the ultimate warning, isn't he? He is efficiency personified, a walking, crowing embodiment of late-stage capitalism. But even he had to learn to dance in the mosh pit. Even he had to accept that some things can't be quantified.
The math is delulu, the vibes are terminal, and we are, quite frankly, choice.
A perfect summary of the whole text.
You know, it really makes you wonder, the next time you see a piece of ancient pottery in a museum, or you hear a weird, low hum near a power line, are you just hearing the electrical grid? Or are you maybe hearing the spline?
And if you happen to see a rooster wearing a 1950s pin, maybe just give him the right of way. He's probably on his way to a board meeting.
Standing on business.
Gambling on business.
That's it for this deep dive. Keep your boots taped and your vibes grounded. We'll see you next time. Okay, I have to admit, when I first looked at the stack of research you sent over for today, I thought you might have accidentally mixed up 3 different files.
It does look a bit like a collision, doesn't it?
A collision? It looks like a car crash between a history textbook, a sci-fi novel, and, I don't know, a 1980s corporate strategy guide. We've got a starving Native American clan in the year 556 AD. We've got a time traveler, and then somehow we're talking about quarterly projections and supply chain management in the middle of an Arkansas swamp.
That sounds completely incoherent on the surface, I know. But if you dig into the source material, what we're actually looking at is a fascinating and frankly a slightly terrifying thought experiment.
Okay.
The premise is basically this. What happens if you take the ruthless, high-efficiency logic of 1980s corporate America and you just force-feed it to a woodland period society that is right on the brink of extinction?
So instead of giving them, like, better spears or medicine, you give them a human resources department.
Essentially, yes. You give them logistics. You give them what the source calls industrial hum.
Okay, let's set the scene for us, because before the spreadsheets and the HR memos show up, this sounds like a pretty desperate situation.
It is. It's incredibly desperate. We are in the Felsenthal Basin in Arkansas. The year is 556 AD. The Bear Clan is facing what the text describes as systemic liquidation.
Which is just a very cold corporate way of saying they're all going to die, right?
Right. They're going to be wiped out. It's a catastrophic drought. The crops have failed. The heat is absolutely oppressive, and they are, slowly starving to death. Their traditional ways, praying to the nature spirits, hunting, gathering, it's not working anymore. The whole system of their culture is crashing.
And into this disaster walks our protagonist, Rafe Delaney.
Rafe he's a piece of work. He calls himself a licensed intermediary.
Right.
He's a time traveler, but he's not there to observe like an anthropologist. He's not Captain Kirk with the prime directive.
No.
He's a fixer, a consultant. He looks at this starving village, and he doesn't see a tragedy. He sees a distressed asset. He decides the only way to save the past is to format it into a corporation.
Format it like a hard drive. That's chilling.
Exactly. And to really understand how he does that, we have to get comfortable with some very specific, very weird vocabulary. The sources keep using these words that just do not belong in the 6th century, like pankel.
Pankel. Is that like a type of fish or something?
No. Pankel is a sound. It's described as the specific noise reality makes when it glitches. Imagine the sound of a digital file corrupting, but you're hearing it happen to a physical tree or a mud wall.
Oh, wow.
It's the sound of the timeline groaning under the weight of Rafe's changes.
That is evocative.
Yeah.
And really ominous.
And then there's Riz.
Okay, I know that one. That's internet slang for charisma, right? Charisma influence.
It is, but in this context, it's weaponized. It refers to the specific kind of influence used to mog a rival, to dominate, to physically or socially overpower someone by being bigger, louder, or more correct, according to the new rules Race is inventing. He literally teaches them how to mog their neighbors. But the most important term, the philosophy that really holds this whole crazy experiment together, is standing on business.
I've heard that phrase in, like, rap songs, but I have a feeling it means something very different here.
Here, standing on business is the absolute rejection of sentimentality. It means honoring the contract, hitting the deliverable, and completely ignoring the emotional or spiritual cost. It means doing what is efficient, even if it absolutely destroys your soul.
Well, on that cheerful note, let's get into it. So Rafe arrives, the clan is starving, What is his first move? Does he bring them food? Technology.
No, that would be a handout. Rafe is a consultant, remember. He brings them structure. And this is our first big section, the industrial pivot.
The industrial pivot.
Rafe looks at the village, and specifically at their architecture. They live in these organic, circular wattle and daub huts.
Which makes perfect sense for the time period and for, a community.
It makes perfect sense for a community. A circle is inclusive. Everyone faces the center. The air flows naturally. But Rafe looks at a circle and he gets angry.
Why? What's wrong with a circle?
You can't stack inventory in a circle.
Of course.
To Rafe, a circle represents dead space. It creates air gaps where you can't put a pallet or a crate. He views their very homes as non-compliant for high-volume storage. So his first move is to introduce the warehouse. He brings tilt-up construction to 556 AD.
Tilt-up? You mean like those ugly beige concrete business parks you see on the side of the highway?
The very same.
Yeah.
But since he doesn't have concrete, he forces them to innovate. They mix shell-tempered clay with this strange, almost shimmering silt he brought from 2026. They use it to build these massive, rectangular wattle and daub tilt walls.
So he's forcing them to build a Costco out of mud and sticks.
He is. But it's not just about the building, though. And this is the really key insight here. When you move a society from living in circles to living on a grid, you change their brain. You fundamentally change their cognitive map. In a circle, you look at your neighbor. The focus is inward, toward the community. In a grid, you look at the primary egress, the exit. You look at the aisle. Your focus is on movement, on flow.
You stop being a neighbor and you start being
What?
traffic.
You become throughput. Rafe reorganizes the entire village flare plan into what he calls a just-in-time logistics hub. He establishes Sector 1, the Regional Fulfillment Center.
This sounds incredibly depressing. How does the clan react to this? I can't imagine the local artisans are thrilled about suddenly living in a fulfillment center.
There is resistance. You're absolutely right. Specifically from a woman named Taeyeon. She's the lead potter, a master of her craft. And she looks at these new, sharp-cornered walls, and she just hates them.
Does she say why? I mean, beyond just, it's ugly.
She does. She uses a term that Rafe actually taught her, but she flips it on him. She calls the architecture aesthetic recessionary.
Aesthetic recessionary. That is amazing. That sounds like something a design critic would say about a strip mall.
Exactly.
Okay.
She's saying that the building itself is a form of spiritual bankruptcy. She calls it cold data. It has no soul. But Rafe doesn't care about soul. He cares about tonnage. And the tragedy is, it works.
It works.
It works brilliantly. By organizing their dugout canoes into a centralized loading dock, they become incredibly efficient at moving goods. They start to mog the neighboring clans, not because they are better warriors, but because they have better inventory management.
So they basically conquer the entire region with spreadsheets and logistics.
That's it. But, every corporation needs a CEO, and Rafe isn't the CEO, he's just the consultant. The figurehead is a rooster.
Okay, you have to explain this. I saw General Beauregard in the notes.
All
I
right.
just assumed that was a nickname for some local warlord. You're telling me it's an actual chicken.
A Rhode Island red rooster, to be precise. One of the items Rafe brought back from the future in a pseudodump. That's his term for injecting modern items into the past.
A pseudodump.
Okay. But you have to understand the context. The Native Americans of this region had never seen a chicken. To them, this isn't poultry. This is some kind of magical creature that screams at the sun. And then the sun comes up.
Oh, wow. So they think he creates the sunrise. He's a sun god.
Rafe certainly doesn't discourage that belief.
Mm-hmm.
So General Beauregard becomes the chief operating divinity. But here's the problem. The rooster has the personality of a 1980s corporate raider.
In what way? It just pecks at things.
He realizes he has leverage. He holds the entire supply chain of the sun hostage. He starts demanding better feed, better bedding, and he engages in union busting.
Union busting against
Okay.
who? The hens.
Against the pottery women. Taeyeon and her team are trying to work the kiln, but the general is just screaming his head off all day long. He's asserting what the text calls his auditory dominance.
Oh my God.
And it says his crowing sounds like mandatory OSHA briefings.
That is a nightmare. You're just trying to make art, and a god chicken is screaming safety regulations at you from dawn till dusk.
So Taeyeon actually tries to organize a strike. They call it Lodo Lockout Tag Out. It's a term from industrial safety. They try to shut down the kiln until the noise stops. But the general just crows louder. He's trying to mog them into submission.
So how do they resolve it? I mean, they can't just,
Yeah.
eat the rooster, right?
They can. He's a god. So Rafe has to introduce a hardware patch. He does another pseudodump. and hands out neon orange 3M earplugs.
Earplugs, that's the brilliant solution.
They call them spirit plugs. But think about what that does psychologically. Taeyeon puts them in. Suddenly, the god is silenced. She can see him screaming his little head off, but she can't hear him. She learns that she can mute the divine.
That's a huge theological shift. It turns the god into content.
Hmm.
Content you can just scroll past or mute if it's annoying you.
Precisely. It strips the rooster of his power. And the text says he suffers a narcissistic injury. He realizes he's being ignored, so he escalates. He demands a golden parachute.
Please tell me that's a metaphor.
It is not. He wants an executive bonus. So Taeyeon has to mint a special coin just for him. She takes a gold-plated corporate service medal from 1985, some award for 10 years of service or something, and she encases it in her special spirit glaze.
And the rooster takes it.
He loves it. He puts this sovereign coin in his nest and guards it. It appeals to his vanity, but it also changes the culture forever. The clan learns that the gods don't want prayers. They want payment.
Which brings us to the money. Because if you have a warehouse and a diva CEO, you need a payroll.
You need a financial system. And this is where Rafe really fundamentally alters the fabric of their society. Before him, they operated on barter. Muscles, skins, favors.
Which is inefficient if you're trying to scale, I guess.
Exactly. You can't run a quarterly report on favors.
Yeah.
So Taeyeon, under Rafe's guidance, creates the cooter coin.
The cooter coin. Okay, what is it?
It's a ceramic disc. But the clay itself isn't the valuable part. Baked inside each coin is a little brass tool tag from the 20th century, like a little ID tag you'd see in a wrench in a factory.
So it's fiat currency. The value is purely symbolic. It's not backed by anything tangible.
Yes, it's standard issue value. But here's the really abstract part. The currency is backed by galvanic vitalism.
Galvanic vitalism. That sounds like something you'd buy from a snake oil salesman. What does it even mean?
Think of the general, the rooster, as the central bank. His energy, his health, his constant annoying screaming. That is the gold reserve. As long as the rooster is alive and loud, the economy has vitalism. If the rooster gets sick, the currency crashes.
So the entire regional economy is based on the health and mood of one bird? That seems incredibly volatile.
Welcome to capitalism.
Hmm.
But Rafe goes further. He's not done. He introduces industrial insurance.
Insurance? Insurance for what?
Eggs. The chickens are now producing a huge surplus, what they call the egg flood. Neighboring clans, like the Panthers, led by a guy named Hukto, they want to buy these eggs. But it's 556 AD, it's hot, there's no refrigeration yet, eggs rot.
So the Panthers are afraid to buy a bad batch. Makes sense.
Right, it's a risk. And Rafe sees that risk and immediately figures out how to monetize it. He sells them a protection plan. For a surcharge of muscles, he guarantees replacement if the eggs undergo a biologic phase transition.
Which is the most soulless corporate speak I've ever heard for rotting.
Isn't it?
Wait. So isn't that just taking advantage of physics? The eggs are going to rot eventually no matter what. He's making them pay for the laws of biology.
He's converting their fear of loss into a recurring revenue stream. And then once they're used to that, he hooks them with credit. Buy now, pay later.
Oh, no, not in the 6th century.
He uses 1980s carbon copy receipt books, you know, the ones with the blue and yellow paper.
I can literally smell that paper just thinking about it.
Hukta wants the eggs but can't pay today. So Rafe has him press his thumbprint on a blue carbon slip,
Creating
a mandatory lien on his future harvest. And this is the moment Huktu stops being a free warrior and starts being an indentured servant to the timeline. Rafe creates fine print. And once you introduce fine print into a society that can't read, you own people.
It's so insidious. He's enslaving them with office supplies.
And all this high-stakes trading creates a power vacuum. The rooster gets stressed out. All this economic pressure is too much. He goes on a self-care retreat.
A self-care retreat.
He literally hides in a creek bed to defrag his ego. Just vanishes for a few days.
So the CEO is absent. The God King is gone. Who's running the company?
Well, the clan starts to panic. They need leadership. They need rules. So Rafe introduces the constitutional pivot. He decides they need a governance protocol. He drafts the Constitution of the Silt.
Is it an actual constitution? You know, we the people, checks and balances.
Not quite. It's written on a piece of industrial cardboard and stamped with a DEC 1987 rubber date stamp. But it's not a Bill of Rights. It's a user agreement.
Like the thing you scroll past on iTunes or an app update without reading.
Exactly like that. It reclassifies their ancestral rights as subscription benefits. It basically says you can live here and eat here, subject to the terms and conditions of the supply chain.
And they agree to this. They just sign away their ancestral rights.
They vote on it. This is what Rafe calls the tripartite compromise. He sets up the first industrial election. And to make it official, he even handed out those little oval "I voted" stickers from the 80s.
Oh, come on. Stickers.
Really. But think about the psychology. It's a spirit seal to them. It validates them. It gives them a little hit of dopamine. They feel empowered because they cast a ballot.
Yeah.
But they don't realize they are voting within a system that Rafe designed from the ground up to control them.
So they accept this new sensation of democracy.
But effectively, they've just become a managed entity.
That is deeply cynical. It's democracy as a pacifier.
It is. And up to this point, the story's been kind of funny, right? It's absurd, it's satirical. You've got the Rooster CEO, the Spirit earplugs, the carbon paper debt.
Yeah, it's been like a very dark comedy.
Well, this is where we have to pause. Because the tone of the source material shifts. And it shifts violently here. We have to talk about the horror and the hum.
The hum.
The industrial hum, the sound of the new, efficient village. But specifically, we have to talk about where all this efficiency and this miracle is actually coming from. The text operates on a concept called grievance capital.
Grievance capital. That sounds heavy.
It is.
Yeah.
The idea is that you don't get something for nothing. The miracle of the egg flood, the survival of the clan, Rafe's ability to even be there at all. It wasn't free. It was paid for by a tragedy, specifically a murder in 1987 involving the Markle family.
A murder from the future.
The Markle resonance. The energy that powers this entire timeline intervention is leaking in from a crime scene in the future. The text says the time travel was powered by a murder that was supposed to be a systemic reset.
So the foundation of this whole corporate paradise is blood.
Old blood. And that blood wants to be paid back. The clan starts to notice something wrong with the crops. They're growing this new hybrid corn Rafe introduced. But when the wind blows through the corn silk,
What happens?
they don't just hear rustling leaves, they hear a voice.
A voice in the corn? Come on.
Imagine walking through a field at dusk. The stalks are tall, it's getting dark, and suddenly, vibrating off the corn silk, which the text describes as a fine wire filament, you hear a recording. A static-filled answering machine voice from 1987.
What does it say?
It says, "We are not home right now. We are currently settling the ledger."
That is horrifying. It's like a ghost story, but the ghost is an accountant, an auditor from beyond the grave.
It's a class action lawsuit from the grave. They start calling it the White Dragon, but it doesn't look like a dragon. It manifests as this static cloud of what look like pixelated legal documents swirling in the air. The ghost of John Markle is suing the clan for unauthorized use of grievance capital.
He's suing them from the future. How does that even work?
He views their survival as a form of theft. He's basically saying, you used the energy of my death to buy your eggs in your corporate structure. Now I want to be paid. And he demands systemic liquidation.
Liquidation. That implies wiping them out completely.
Meeting them. Formatting the drive. The ghost wants to reclaim the energy. And this all leads to the climax. The debt matures on the 16th.
Rafe has to do something. He can't just throw a cooter corn at a ghost, right?
No. Financial engineering doesn't work on the supernatural.
Yeah.
He realizes he has to make a real sacrifice. He has to give up his primary asset.
What does Rafe even have? He's just a guy in a swamp with some office supplies.
He has his vest. His Harris tweed vest.
A vest. That's his most valuable asset.
You have to understand Rafe's psychology. That vest is his header artifact. It's the only thing connecting him to his own timeline, to his identity as a high-class border gringo, as he calls himself. It separates him from the mud. It's his narrative shield. As long as he wears the tweed, he's an observer. He's superior.
But so if he gives it up?
He becomes just another starving human in 556 AD. He loses his status. But the ghost is closing in. The corn is screaming the lawsuit. So Rafe unbuttons the vest. He initiates what the book calls an involuntary conversion. He throws it into the fire.
He burns his identity.
And the text calls the residue Newtonian ash. Taeyeon, the potter. She takes that ash, the literal remains of his future self, and mixes it into a spirit glaze. She coats all the storage jars with it.
And that works. Ashy pottery stops a ghost lawsuit.
Think of it like a Faraday cage for spiritual debt. Or like wiping your browser history and all your cookies.
Yeah.
The ash cloaks the village in a new kind of signature. The ghost can't find the debt anymore because the header artifact that linked them to it is destroyed. The resonance shield holds.
But Rafe, what's left of him?
Rafe is left shirtless. He's standing in the mud. He's barefoot, except for these makeshift moccasins he's wrapped in silver duct tape.
He lost his armor.
He's lost his narrative shield. But he saved the supply chain. He is no longer a consultant. The text says he has become the primary ground. He is now fully, irrevocably trapped in the timeline he created.
So they win, the ghost is gone, the clan survives.
They survive. But winning, I think that's debatable.
Huh.
And this leads us to the final section, the final audit. We have to look at what the village has actually become.
I'm guessing it's not the same circle of huts it was at the beginning.
Oh, no. It's a high-efficiency machine. They have refrigeration, which is really just pits lined with bubble wrap and insulation Rafe dug up. They have a central bank. They have gated mounds with security perimeters.
It sounds safe.
Secure. It is safe. It's secure. They have a surplus of calories. But the text says the lore is gone, and it's been replaced by policy. All the stories, the myths, the connection to the land, it's all been overwritten by the user agreement.
And what about the rooster? The general, is he still the CEO?
He gets a deplatformed.
Canceled. A chicken gets canceled.
Tech canceled. Taeon, having mastered this new blend of old and new tech, builds a resonance pylon. Basically, a ceramic antenna wrapped in copper wire. It emits a low hum that specifically drowns out the rooster. They don't need his crowing to bring the sun anymore because they have schedules and technology. The magic is gone. The utility remains.
And Rafe, what is his life like now at the end of all this?
He's the manager of a Walmart in the mud. There's this really poignant moment where he's looking out at the thriving village, the fat chickens, the quiet, predictable order, and he says, "It's mucho bueno for the calorie count, but rancid for the soul."
Wow, that hits hard. Rancid for the soul.
And his final corporate innovation is to introduce these little stickers for the egg crates. They say, SIs, no returns.
Yes.
It's the ultimate philosophy of this new world. No complaints, no returns. You get what you get. It signifies the absolute end of empathy. It's the final victory of bureaucracy over human or spiritual grievance.
He's standing on business, literally, to the very end.
He is. And the text ends with a very strange, very technical note. It says, the chronohydraulic spline held.
Whoa, back up. Chronohydraulic spline. That sounds like Star Trek technobabble. What does that actually mean?
Think of time like a pressurized water pipe. Rafe's changes, the warehouse, the capitalism, the future items, all of that dramatically increased the pressure inside the pipe. That's the industrial hum they're always hearing. That's the stress on reality.
Okay, so the pipe should have burst. The timeline should have collapsed.
All right. The universe should have just rejected these changes completely. The spline is basically the metaphysical pressure valve or the clamp that's holding the pipe together. It held, the timeline didn't explode, but the cost was that the water inside the culture got tainted.
It tastes like copper now. It's not pure anymore.
Exactly. The structure survived, but the flavor is gone.
So bringing this all back to reality, or, well, our reality, why does this bizarre story about roosters and time-traveling consultants matter to us?
I think it asks a really fundamental question about what we trade for survival, or even just for comfort. The Bear Clan didn't go extinct. By all metrics, they won, but they had become a subscription model to do it.
Is it worth trading your lore, your stories, your spirit, your soul for a protection plan?
We live in a world that is constantly trying to optimize us, right? We're pushed to be efficient, to stand on business, to view our relationships as transactions. Rafe Delaney brought that mindset to the 6th century, and it saved their lives. But it completely hollowed them out.
It reminds you that efficiency is often just a polite word for erasing all the messy, unpredictable human parts of life.
And let's not forget the grievance capital. You can't build a surplus on someone else's tragedy without eventually hearing that whisper in the corn. The debt always, always comes due.
That is a really haunting thought.
The story leaves us with this final image. In the year 2026, a paper mill whistle blows, signaling the end of a shift, the sounds of modern industry. And simultaneously, in 556 AD, Rafe Delaney stands barefoot in the mud, listening to that same industrial hum.
The hum that never shuts off.
It connects the two times. It suggests that once you turn that machine on, once you click I agree on the terms of service for reality, you can never really opt out. You are just managing the logistics of your own existence from then on.
The audit is closed.
Indeed.
Before we go, I want to throw one last kind of unsettling thought out there. We talked about how they muted the ghost with the ash glaze, but you mentioned the corn silk still acts as a filament.
Yes. It still picks up the frequency. Even if the ghost can't act on it, the signal is still there.
So, if the Bear Clan is eating that corn, and the Panthers are eating that corn they traded for.
Are they ingesting the trauma? Are they internalizing the debt?
Exactly. Is the industrial hum literally rewriting their biology from the inside out?
That is a terrifying possibility.
Yeah.
Biological formatting. You are what you eat, and they are, in a very real sense, eating a lawsuit.
Man, I'm never going to look at a terms of service agreement or a rooster the same way again. Thanks for taking us down this very weird rabbit hole.
Anytime. Just, remember to read the fine print.
Always. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you in the next timeline.